Your card was declined. You're embarrassing us. My daughter-in-law screamed. My name is Margaret Sullivan, but everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 69 years old. I thought I'd learned every lesson life had to teach me until the day my daughter-in-law screamed across the checkout line. Your card was declined, Maggie. They said it's blocked. Her voice cut through the grocery store like a siren. People stared. The young cashier froze, her cheeks red with pity. My son Ryan stood beside her, eyes darting between us, his jaw tightening the way it always did when he wanted to disappear. I held the basket tighter. The receipt printer clicked, waiting for my response. And for a brief electric second, I almost let them believe I was the fool, the confused old woman who couldn't manage her own bank card. But the truth was, I'd blocked that card myself hours earlier because for weeks, I'd felt something was off. The late-night whispers behind closed doors, the new designer purse that didn't match their tight budget, and the sudden interest in my will. All of it was too much to ignore. If you're enjoying this story so far, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our daily stories. So I made a choice. A quiet, deliberate act to see just how far my daughter-in-law would go if she thought I wasn't watching. Now, standing in that store with a line of strangers behind me and my son's wife trembling in anger, I realized I'd found my answer. And I wasn't going to be silent anymore. 6 months earlier, my house had been so quiet I could hear the refrigerator hum like a heartbeat. It was peaceful in that way silence feels when it finally settles after years of chaos. My husband had passed 5 years before, and I'd learned to live with the stillness until Ryan called one Thursday evening. "Mom, we just need a place for a couple of months," he said. His voice careful, almost rehearsed. "Jessica's company is relocating and we're between leases. It'd really help us out." There was a time when those words, "We need your help," would have filled me with pride. I'd spent decades being the person my family leaned on. So I told them, yes, of course. My house had 2 empty bedrooms, one of which still smelled faintly of my late husband's cologne. I told myself it would be nice to have life in the house again. They arrived that weekend with boxes, laughter, and a brand new espresso machine that Jessica said was a moving gift to herself. She was bright, polished, and always on her phone. Ryan looked tired, thinner than I remembered, like he was running on something borrowed. First, everything felt normal. We cooked dinner together, watched old movies, but slowly tiny cracks began to show, the kind you only notice when it's already too late. Jessica started taking calls late at night, whispering near the back door. Packages arrived with her name but my address. I'd find her in my office, saying she was just looking for stamps or checking the printer. Once I caught her trying to open my filing cabinet. She smiled too quickly, said, "Oh, I thought it was the linen closet." I wanted to believe her. I really did. Ryan seemed oblivious. He'd spend long hours at work, and when he came home, he was either distracted or defensive. "She's just trying to help around the house," he'd say whenever I mentioned it. Help. By rearranging my bills. By asking questions about my pension. One Sunday I noticed something strange. My checkbook was slightly out of place. Top page creased. I opened it and found an entry I hadn't written. The handwriting was neat, looping, and definitely not mine. My stomach dropped. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I needed to be sure. That evening, as we ate dinner, Jessica complimented my casserole, then casually mentioned, "Mom, you should really let Ryan handle your finances now. It's just safer at your age. You know, scammers love targeting seniors." She laughed softly, as if she'd just said something kind. I smiled, but inside something went cold. The next week I went to the bank. I told the clerk I wanted to review all recent activity just in case. She hesitated before printing the statements. When I looked at them, I saw small transactions, grocery stores, gas, a few online purchases, all in my neighborhood. But I hadn't made them. Still, I said nothing. Instead, I took precautions. I installed a small camera in my office, one that looked like a clock. I changed the passwords on my accounts and I started locking my bedroom door. One night I woke to faint noises. My floorboards creak easily, and I knew the sound by heart. Light steps outside my door, then the click of the doorknob. I held my breath. The door didn't open. After a few seconds the sound faded away. The next morning, Jessica acted as if nothing had happened. She brewed coffee, humming. Ryan kissed her on the cheek, his hand lingering on her shoulder as though to say, "Hold it together." That was when I realized they were both hiding something. 2 weeks later, I reviewed the footage from my little clock camera. There she was, Jessica, quietly entering my office when I was out gardening. She went through my drawers, opened my desk, and photographed my tax documents. She even smiled at her reflection in the computer screen before leaving. My chest tightened. I replayed the clip twice, hoping I'd misread it. But the truth was clear. This wasn't curiosity. It was preparation. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat. We share real-life stories like this every single day. That evening I called my friend Pat, a retired paralegal. I told her everything. She was silent for a long time, then said, "Maggie, sweetheart, don't confront her yet. You need evidence and a lawyer." I remember sitting at my kitchen table after the call, staring at the photo of my husband on the mantel. "What would you have done?" I whispered. The house didn't answer, but I could almost hear him say, "Be smart, not angry." So I waited. I smiled at Jessica during breakfast, asked about her new job, even lent her my car once, and all the while I documented everything. Dates, receipts, call logs. I learned the rhythm of her deceit, every pattern, every pretense. By the end of that month, I no longer recognized my own home. The laughter had turned to tension. Ryan stopped talking to me about work. Jessica stopped pretending to be kind. They'd begun whispering again, but now the whispers sounded different. Urgent, panicked. Then one afternoon, I overheard what I wasn't meant to hear. Through the thin wall between my bedroom and the hallway, Jessica said, "If she signs the transfer, we can finally pay off the credit cards. She won't even notice." My breath caught. A chill crawled up my spine. That night, I sat in the dark, hands folded, heart steady. I wasn't sure what hurt more, their debt, their deceit, or the fact that my own son was willing to let it happen. But one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let it happen again. The next few weeks passed under a kind of uneasy truce. Jessica kept her distance from my office, and Ryan buried himself in work. We'd exchange polite hellos, share a meal now and then, and pretend that everything was fine. But beneath that fragile civility, something darker was taking root. I noticed how quickly Jessica took over small things. The mail, the grocery lists, even my calendar reminders. She called it helping. To anyone else it might have looked like love, but I could feel the walls closing in. One morning I found my bank statement open on the kitchen counter. It was mine, printed out, folded neatly, and left under a mug. The paper was still warm from the printer. My stomach twisted. I hadn't printed it. When I asked, Jessica smiled like she always did. "Oh, I was just trying to help you keep track of things," she said. "You've been forgetting to shred these, Mom." She said it with a sweetness that felt like poison. That night I called the bank again. I told them I wanted every detail of recent access to my account. The woman on the other end hesitated, then said gently, "Mrs. Sullivan, a request was submitted last week to update your beneficiary information. It was cancelled after our fraud alert system flagged it, but the form listed a new name, Jessica Sullivan." My breath caught. "Are you sure?" "Yes, ma'am," she replied softly. "It was submitted online from your home IP address." I thanked her, hung up, and sat at the kitchen table for what felt like hours. The clock ticked above me, each second cutting deeper than the last. Jessica hadn't just been snooping. She'd been preparing to erase me. By morning I had a plan. I met with Bob Mitchell, a lawyer recommended by Pat. His office smelled faintly of coffee and old books. He listened without interrupting, jotting notes as I spoke. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "You've got enough to start building a case. Theft by deception, attempted financial fraud." But you need proof, real traceable evidence. I already have some, I said, sliding a USB across his desk. Footage from a hidden camera, and I have phone records. She's been calling debt collectors. He watched the clip silently, Jessica rifling through my drawers, snapping photos of my papers, then nodded slowly. That's good. Very good. But don't confront her yet. Let her think you're unaware. People like her slip when they feel safe. I left his office feeling both stronger and smaller. Stronger because I finally had direction. Smaller because it broke my heart that it had come to this, that I was building a case against my own family. That evening, Ryan asked why I'd been out all day. Just errands, I said. He nodded absently, eyes on his phone. I caught a glimpse of a text. We'll figure this out soon. She won't stand in our way. I excused myself, walked to my room, and closed the door quietly. For the first time in my life, I felt like an outsider in my own home. The next few days I played my part. I laughed when Jessica showed me new clothes, complimented her cooking, acted the part of the doting mother-in-law who didn't notice the cracks. Inside though, I was documenting everything. Screenshots, transaction logs, even the timestamps of her late-night online sessions. Then one morning, a letter arrived addressed to me, but written in Ryan's handwriting. It was from their bank, a joint loan approval form. My name was listed as guarantor. I never signed it. That was the moment the last thread snapped. I drove to the bank, trembling. The manager reviewed the form, confirmed the signature was forged, and quietly promised to add a fraud alert on my profile. We'll notify law enforcement if anything else happens, she said. If you're invested in Maggie's journey, please subscribe and turn on notifications. We post powerful stories like this every day, and you won't want to miss what happens next. That night I confronted Ryan, not with rage but with sorrow. Did you know about the form? Yes. He hesitated too long. His silence was louder than a confession. Jessica thought you'd be fine with it, he muttered finally. It was just temporary. We're in a tough spot, Mom. Tough spots don't give you the right to steal, I said quietly. He looked at me then, not as a son, but as a man caught between guilt and shame. You wouldn't understand. Oh, Ryan, I whispered. I understand more than you think. After he left the room, I stood by the window, staring out at the cold November sky. The trees were bare, their branches like veins reaching toward the moon. I realized then that love, no matter how deep, can't survive without respect. The next morning I called Bob again. It's time, I said. I want to protect what's left. He told me we'd start by freezing all access to my accounts. You'll need to block your cards too, he added. If she tries to use them, we'll have the transaction logs. That's hard evidence. The plan was simple. I'd block the card quietly, let Jessica try to use it, and catch her red-handed. Bob arranged to have the local police on standby in case things escalated. That night, as I sat alone in the kitchen, I stared at my husband's photo once more. You'd be proud of me, I murmured. I'm not running anymore. I didn't sleep much. My mind replayed every detail. The phone calls, the forged form, Ryan's face when he couldn't defend her. Hurt. God, it hurt. But beneath the pain was something steady, like a small flame refusing to die. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers quietly, patiently until the truth stands on its own. And in the morning, I knew exactly what I had to do. The morning of the plan felt almost ordinary. Sunlight spilled across the kitchen table, catching the dust motes as I poured my coffee. If someone had walked in, they would have thought I was just another old woman starting her day. But my phone was open beside me, recording every second. I'd blocked the card the night before, just as Bob instructed. The bank confirmed the security alert was active. Any attempt to use that card would trigger a notification to both me and the fraud unit. At noon, Jessica breezed into the kitchen wearing a floral dress and perfume too strong for errands. I'll take care of the groceries today, she chirped, waving my wallet. You rest, Mom. It was the same tone she used when she wanted to sound caring. Thank you, I said softly. Just grab what we need for the weekend. She smiled, too wide, too confident, and left with Ryan following behind her like a shadow. I sat down and waited. The clock ticked. 10 minutes passed, then 15. At exactly 12:23, my phone buzzed. Alert. Transaction declined. Walmart at Bridges Market. A second later, Bob's number lit up my screen. It happened, he said. I'm already at the store. Stay calm. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from something close to relief. When I arrived, the parking lot shimmered in the heat. Through the glass doors I could see them. Jessica at the register, voice raised. Ryan beside her, pale and stiff. I swear this card worked yesterday, she shouted at the cashier. She must have cancelled it. This is humiliating. The young clerk looked helpless, glancing between them. I stepped forward, steady and quiet. Jessica, I said. I did cancel it. Her head snapped toward me, eyes blazing. What? I blocked the card, I said again, holding her gaze. Because I knew you'd try to use it. The world around us went still. The line of customers behind her whispered. Ryan looked as though he might vanish into the floor. You set me up, she stammered. No, I said. You set yourself up. I just made sure there were witnesses. Bob approached then, suit crisp, badge from the county clerk's office clipped to his pocket. Mrs. Sullivan, he said formally. Thank you for coming. Officers are here to keep the peace while we serve the notice. 2 uniformed police officers stood a few feet away, calm and watchful. They weren't here to arrest anyone, just to make sure things didn't turn ugly. Jessica's voice cracked. Notice. What notice? Bob opened his briefcase, handed her an envelope. Formal termination of residence permission. You and Mr. Sullivan have 72 hours to vacate the premises. All access to Mrs. Sullivan's financial accounts is revoked. Ryan's face drained of color. Mom, you called the cops. I called for protection, I said quietly. Not revenge. Jessica lunged forward as if to snatch the envelope, then stopped when one of the officers gently raised a hand. This isn't fair, she cried. We just needed help. Help doesn't come from stealing, I answered. You tried to change my will, forge my signature, and drain my account. That's not help. That's harm. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Bob slid a small USB drive across the counter toward the officer. Evidence. Camera footage, banking logs, digital signature comparison. The officer nodded. We'll file it with the report. For a long moment no one spoke. The beeping of the register was the only sound. I could see Ryan's hands shaking. Mom, he said finally, voice breaking. I didn't mean. I know, I interrupted softly. But you let it happen. He looked at me then, eyes full of something between guilt and relief. I didn't know how to stop her. You stop her, I said, by not joining her. Tears welled in his eyes. Jessica turned away, furious, humiliated, whispering curses under her breath. I took a deep breath and placed a small grocery bag, my own, on the counter. I'll pay for this, I told the cashier, with my new card. The girl smiled nervously and rang it up. As the receipt printed, she whispered, Good for you, ma'am. Outside, the air was warm and clean. I could finally breathe again. Ryan followed me to the parking lot. What happens now? He asked. You move out, I said. And you get your life back. If you want it, I'll help you when you're ready to stand on your own. But not while you're standing on my neck. He nodded slowly, a tear slipping down his cheek. Then he turned back toward the store where Jessica was still arguing with the officers. As I drove home, the sun dipped low behind the trees, turning the sky the color of forgiveness. I wasn't sure if we'd ever be a family again. But for the first time in months I felt like myself, whole, steady, unafraid. Before we finish Maggie's incredible story, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our daily stories. When I reached the driveway, Bob was already waiting. He handed me a copy of the notice. "It's all official now," he said. "You did everything right." "I just wanted peace," I murmured. "And you've earned it," he replied. That night, as I locked the front door, the silence in my house felt different. Not lonely this time, just honest. In the darkness, I whispered to my husband's photograph, "It's over." But deep down, I knew the hardest part was still to come. The morning after everything unfolded, my house was quiet again, but not the suffocating kind of quiet I'd lived with for months. This time the silence felt clean, earned. Jessica and Ryan packed through the night. I stayed in my room, listening to the muffled sounds of boxes closing, drawers slamming, footsteps moving down the hallway that had once echoed with my husband's laughter. By dawn, their car was gone. Only a faint tire track curved across the driveway like a closing parenthesis. I walked through the house slowly, touching the walls, opening windows, letting in the cold air of early winter. For the first time in a long while, it felt like my home again. Not a place of suspicion, but of peace. Still, grief came in waves. Not for Jessica, but for the version of Ryan I used to know, the boy who built birdhouses with his father, who promised he'd always look out for me. I missed that boy, but I had to accept that he was gone for now, buried under debt, shame, and someone else's influence. Over the next few weeks, I met with Bob several times. He helped me close the compromised accounts, set up new protections, and revise my will. Each meeting left me lighter, as if I was taking back pieces of myself I'd lost without noticing. Neighbors began dropping by again. Pat brought soup. Mrs. Dorothy Green from next door offered to help with yard work. Life, it seemed, was gently returning to normal. But at night, when the house went dark, I'd still hear echoes, Ryan's laughter, Jessica's voice, my own heart breaking quietly behind closed doors. Then one afternoon in early spring, my phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. The caller ID read unknown. I almost deleted it, but something stopped me. His voice was shakier than I remembered. "Mom, it's me. I'm sorry." He took a breath, the sound catching halfway through. "I've been going to therapy. I've cut contact with Jessica. I know I have a lot to make up for. I just wanted you to know I'm okay. And I'm grateful you didn't give up on me, even when I didn't deserve it." I sat there in my living room, holding the phone against my chest, eyes wet but smiling. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was a start. That night, I walked into the kitchen, brewed myself a cup of tea, and sat by the window where the evening light spilled across the counter. Outside, the world looked soft again. A few daffodils had pushed through the soil by the mailbox, renewal in small, stubborn ways. I thought about all the lessons I'd learned, about trust, about strength, about how love without boundaries isn't love at all. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, not to win, but simply to stop losing. When I went to bed, I left the lights off. I didn't need them. The house finally was bright enough on its own. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that peace, once earned, is worth protecting. Thank you so much for watching Maggie's powerful story. If you enjoyed it, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. We post amazing true stories every single day. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next story.